Welcome to True Tales from the Other Side. If you have a true encounter with the unexplained that you want to share, contact us through the email address below. Enjoy.
Deep within the towering pines and rugged peaks of Mount Rainier National Park, where the snow-capped mountain stands as a sentinel over the Pacific Northwest, there existed a place that few dared to speak of, a hidden wilderness where the trails end and the maps turn blank. This place wasn't on the brochures or park signs. It was whispered about by the locals and known only as the Boundary. Rachel Morris, an experienced hiker, had heard these whispers. But she wasn't the type to believe in campfire stories. She came to Mount Rainier seeking challenge and adventure, not folklore. So, when her friend Kyle proposed a trek through the less explored backcountry, she eagerly agreed. Their journey began beneath a canopy of ancient firs, the air cool and damp from the morning fog. The sounds of birdsong and rustling leaves surrounded them. But as the hours stretched on and the forest deepened, Rachel noticed something strange. The wildlife seemed to vanish. The forest, once alive with sound, grew silent. The pines stood still, as if holding their breath. That night, they set up camp in a secluded clearing. The stars were hidden behind a veil of mist, and the only light came from the flickering flames of their campfire. Rachel felt an unease settle over her, but Kyle dismissed her concerns, laughing it off as first-night jitters. But when Rachel woke up the next morning, Kyle was gone. His tent was empty. His pack was gone. The only sign of him was a faint trail of footprints leading deeper into the woods. Rachel called his name, her voice echoing through the stillness. But there was no reply. Grabbing her gear, she followed the trail, each step pulling her further into the unknown. As the day wore on, the forest began to change. The trees grew taller, their trunks impossibly wide. Symbols, etched deep into the bark, appeared, glowing faintly with an eerie blue light. They pulsed, as if alive, resonating with a low hum that Rachel could feel in her chest. By nightfall, Rachel realized she was hopelessly lost. The terrain was unrecognizable, and her compass spun erratically, refusing to point north. Then, she heard it. The whispers. At first, it sounded like the wind moving through the trees. But the longer she listened, the more distinct it became. Words spoken in a language she couldn't understand. The whispers grew louder, surrounding her, pulling her attention to the shadows beyond her campfire. Shapes moved there, tall, thin figures with glowing eyes that seemed to watch her from just beyond the light. Rachel froze, clutching her flashlight as one of the figures stepped closer. Its body shimmered like moonlight on water, cloaked in a dark, flowing robe. It raised a hand, long and delicate, and pointed to the symbols on a nearby tree. The meaning was clear. Leave. She didn't need to be told twice. The next morning, Rachel stumbled out of the forest, battered and disoriented. Park rangers found her near the edge of the trailhead, mumbling about whispers, glowing symbols, and them. The rangers exchanged glances but said nothing. They had heard these stories before, too many times. Mount Rainier wasn't just a park. It was a boundary, a place where the veil between worlds was thin. And while most visitors stayed safe on the marked trails, those who wandered too far into the unknown often never came back. Rachel was one of the lucky ones. But as she left the park that day, she glanced back at the mountain rising above the clouds. For a moment, she thought she saw something moving on the ridgeline. Tall, thin figures watching her departure. Guardians of the boundary, ensuring the secrets of Mount Rainier remained hidden. In the rolling mists of Great Smoky Mountains National Park, where ancient forests stretch endlessly into the horizon, lies a realm of untamed wilderness. The kind of place where shadows linger too long and the air carries secrets older than memory. Sarah Davis had heard the park's reputation for its beauty. Towering hardwoods, crystal-clear streams, and a haunting sense of timelessness. But the whispers she'd heard, the stories of strange happenings deep in the backcountry, only added to the allure. A seasoned hiker, she couldn't resist the call of adventure. Her journey began on a crisp autumn morning. The trail was well marked, the weather perfect. Birds sang in the trees, and leaves crunched beneath her boots. She had planned a solo overnight hike to explore the lesser-known trails. By midday, the trail began to narrow, the woods growing denser. A strange quiet settled over the forest. The birdsong faded. Even the rustling of leaves seemed muted. Sarah shrugged it off as nature's stillness. That evening, as she set up camp near a bubbling stream, the forest seemed to press in around her. The mist grew thick, rolling in waves between the trees. She lit a fire and tried to shake off the feeling that she wasn't alone. The first sound came just after midnight. A low, guttural growl echoed from the woods. Sarah froze, her hand tightening on her flashlight. She scanned the trees, but saw nothing. Then came the footsteps, soft at first, like something circling her campsite. Her flashlight beam caught movement. A figure, a silhouette, darting between the trees. She called out, her voice trembling. "Who's there?" No answer. Suddenly, the growling stopped, replaced by a strange hum. A sound that seemed to vibrate in her bones. The mist thickened, and Sarah could barely see the fire in front of her. That's when she saw it. A creature, impossibly tall, with elongated limbs and glowing eyes that pierced the fog. Its movements were jerky, unnatural, like a puppet pulled by invisible strings. It stood at the edge of her camp, watching. Sarah ran. She didn't bother packing her gear. She bolted into the woods, branches tearing at her clothes and skin. The hum grew louder, now accompanied by whispers. Voices calling her name. Hours passed in a blur of fear and exhaustion. Somehow, she stumbled back onto a trail, her breath ragged, her legs trembling. That's when the rangers found her. 2 of them, their flashlights cutting through the mist. Their faces were stern as they approached. "You're lucky we found you," one said, his voice devoid of warmth. "What happened?" Sarah stammered. "I saw something out there." The rangers exchanged a glance. Then the older one spoke, his tone flat and deliberate. "You didn't see anything." Sarah stared at him, confused. "What?" "No, there was. Nothing happened," the ranger interrupted. His eyes bore into hers, cold and unyielding. "You got lost, that's all. Go back to the visitor center. Get some rest." The other ranger stepped closer, his voice a low growl. "And don't tell anyone what you think you saw. Or else." Sarah wanted to protest, to demand answers. But the weight of their stares, the finality in their voices, silenced her. The next morning, she left the park, her gear still abandoned in the woods. She told herself she'd imagined it, that fear and exhaustion had played tricks on her mind. But as she drove away, she glanced in the rearview mirror, and for just a moment, she thought she saw them. 2 tall, glowing figures standing at the tree line,
and remember,
watching her
nothing
leave.
is what it seems.